Welcome back to the Social Landlord podcast, part 2. Still with Murray Gallagher from the Housing Network. Just want to get straight back into it because I'm conscious that you've got places to be and things like that. What is the next step for the Housing Network? Where are your goals for maybe the rest of this year and next year?
So we've got ambitious plans. The ultimate goal is to have 10,000 units of accommodation. At the minute, we're sitting at around 3,000, and that's by end of 2029. So in the next 4.5 years, the plan is to get to 10,000 units and work in more areas. So at the minute, we currently work in about 105 different areas of the UK, mainly England, and we've got a project in Edinburgh. But we want to work in 75% of local authorities. So that is the plan, and we have to be conscious when, like all business, when kind of growing and looking at what the next step is and what the plan is. So that is kind of the headline goal, where we want to get to, what we're aiming for. But to get there, you need the infrastructure around you, because you don't want to start a project or break into a new area, away from other areas where you've worked in the past, and it not work.
Steady pipeline.
Yeah, it's because you've got, the local authorities that are depending on you. You've got families and residents that are depending on you. You've got landlords that depend on you. So it's all about doing it in the right time, in the right way, in the right format. But I think because we've done it for so long up until now, you kind of got the blueprint. So when you get to an area, what you need around you, the people you need around you, the processes, systems that you need to make sure it is as smooth as possible. Obviously, nothing's ever completely smooth sailing.
The theory behind it is, copy and paste. You're just going to move, Liverpool to wherever you want to go next, essentially. Yeah. I think the actual implementation of what we were saying earlier, keeping that service where you want it to be, keeping your landlords happy.
And being the preferred partner of choice. And that goes for everybody, right? That goes for all of our stakeholders. So the local authorities, we want to be the preferred partner of choice. We want to know if they've got a demand and a need for emergency temporary accommodation. We want them to know we can come to you and we can help in that, in that saying. And landlords, if they've got a property, they're just buying a property, or they've got a property coming empty, we want to be that preferred partner where they
run it past you.
They just think about us, right? We just want to be on their radar all the time, and that's why it's so important to keep putting yourself out there as a housing network and as a team.
It's like the saying, out of sight, out of
100%. It's out of sight, out of mind, and it's staying in regular contact, and it's just being on the radar all the time.
Lewis asked ambitions, but I really want to know how in 2 years you've helped the housing network grow from you were the 65th employee to 200th, and how on earth you've got this many properties in short span. What is it that keeps you ticking? And
so
because being motivated is one thing, but being consistent is completely different.
So that is one thing to quantify, actually. You say you were the 65th member of staff, so you've gained another 140 odd members.
Yeah.
How many properties have you gained? In a percentage-wise, you've nearly tripled your staff. Have you tripled the amount of properties you've had in that 2 years? Or
so we've so I don't know the exact numbers in the 2 years, but we take on average 65 properties a month. And some of those properties are, HMOs, shared bed space properties. So, when we're talking units of accommodation, we're talking like
in excess of 100 units.
Easily. Sometimes. So that's one thing. And I mean, look, the housing network hasn't grown because I've kind of got on board and joined there. The two managing directors are have a really clear vision. It didn't happen by chance. It didn't happen overnight. You know, it's a long, hard grind to get to where we've got to, and it's about taking risks. And the good thing about being part of a company that is, you know, a provider at the size we are is they can take risks. They can make commercial decisions. We can move quickly. We can mobilise quickly. We can you know set up shop, if you like, relatively fast, because we've got an amazing team of people, senior leadership team who just know that, you know, this is a task. Everybody just knows what their role in that process is, and it's a huge team effort with, you know, the senior leadership team, but also with all the staff that, you know, keep the wheels turning all the time.
It's important to have a good team.
Very important. It's like everything is in the team, right?
You mentioned earlier when you were talking, you can't do everything. Certain people are just designated to do certain things, and that's what keeps you allowing you to do your job.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got me thinking. Actually, we went to go. Me and Mo went to go for just a meeting with another company yesterday evening. And when we got there, obviously, you know, nice lobby, fancy sofas, nice conference room downstairs, and then they take you upstairs, and everything was just separated, like so organised, so perfect. You know, they had one strip. There was about 10 people in there. Like, yeah, oh, that's our social media team. That's our marketing team. They had another strip, and it was, you know, all their sales negotiators and their lead analysers and people and stuff like that. Then he took us into the director's office, and they showed us some software. And I could, to the T, bring every single property in Liverpool that fits your criteria, that's on the market, off the market. And what they were doing, it was just, they were so methodical, and obviously they were really successful at what they're doing. And again, it just boils down to having that right team, having the structure in place. You've got the blueprint. It's just a matter of moving it to the next area that you want it to go to, I think.
Yeah, and look, it's about making decisions, being open-minded to kind of what's next, and obviously moving along with the times.
What is it that makes you motivated?
So me personally,
being motivated is hard. People lose interest.
Yeah.
Being consistent again, like you've said, for 2 years, 3 years, how long you've been here,
Yeah, so I like making a difference. So a few things really. I like to know that I'm making a difference, even though I can't see it.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm in the office or I'm out meeting landlords, etc. I can't see the difference that I'm making to the lives of the people that live in our properties. But that is kind of a huge kind of motivating factor for me. But also with that making a difference, I also like making a difference within the team. So I have a team of people who I want to motivate and want them to be consistent, and they are, and they're you know, really, really good at what they do, and they're committed to the cause, and I think, you know, from the top of the company down, is trying to create this culture of we're all on a mission, right? We're all on, and the forefront of the mission is we are trying to give hope to people. We're trying to impact and improve people's lives. But that goes for the people around us as well, right? That doesn't go for our residents. That goes for the staff. It goes for our partners. It goes for everybody that is involved in this universe of trying to make things happen.
So we've had the housing network's goals. What are your goals?
See,
so if we know very little about you, I know more about your sister than I do about you. I know that your sister's, is she an Olympic boxer?
She's a professional boxer.
She's a professional boxer.
Yeah, she's a British champion.
Right, okay. So that's where your motivation comes from.
I was about to say,
it must run in the family.
Streak?
Yeah.
Definitely. I can imagine. So yeah, we've heard the housing network's goals, where they want to be. You must have some personal goals of your own.
Look, I feel like I'm a project-based person, right? So I started within the housing network to open a department. I opened that department. I've got a really good relationship with the managing directors, and it was always okay. Within 6 months, you're probably going to have a team of 3 or 4 people. Within 12 months, you're probably going to have a team of 10 people. And as you grow, more opportunities come, which has happened. We're on this. So for me personally, to get the team up to where it needs to be is
enough of a personal accomplishment.
is a bit of a mission for me. And then look, for me, I'll see what's after that. I think I'd like to educate people on what this industry is and social housing as a whole. But I think we just keep pushing forward with what's going on now and see what happens.
I think you'll be a happy man if your own personal targets are your work targets, and your directors must love you because you obviously never switch off. So one thing that we ask everyone that comes in, it used to be, what piece of advice would you give to yourself as 25 years old, which is not really any good for yourself because we're only 27. If you could go back, let's give it another 10 years, 17 years old, just before you started at your estate agency, what one piece of advice would you give yourself that you've learned from, the past 10 years?
A better way of putting it is, would there be anything that you'd change? Everyone makes mistakes, but now having the knowledge that you have, there be anything that you would have done differently?
I think I would have been more open-minded at certain points in my career and my working life. Like I say, for the first 8 years, all I really knew was the private market. But I would have been more open-minded. I would have just been a lot more curious and looked into more things, because you can get so bogged down with your day-to-day stuff all the time that it's so repetitive, right? You're doing the same thing over and over and over again that you're failing to learn. Actually, there's a big wide world out there. Yeah. There's lots of stuff going on that you have no idea about.
You're closing your own world.
Yeah. So I think it would be to have been more curious, going through my own personal journey in business. I was young in business, right? So I was 18 when we opened up the estate agency. By the time I left, we had about 14 staff members, and it was a journey.
Successful first business,
definitely, really, and they're doing amazingly well now. And they've moved, and they're how they've grown.
So, do you think if you'd have known more about social housing back when you were working with an estate agency, that your path might have gone down a different route, perhaps more similar to Citywide's?
Yeah,
we used to be a letting agents, and then obviously we became privy into the social housing sector. They started becoming an assisted living developer, things like that. Do you think if you'd have known about this before you left the estate agents, would you have even come to the housing network?
Possibly. It would have been the journey would have kind of taken a different route.
The important part is you've been ahead of the curve, like Citywide and Murray's personal thing. Being ahead of the curve, not jumping onto social housing now. But the question is, how soon would you have actually gone into it? You'd say you came into social housing at the right time.
I think when you see the opportunity, right, and understanding how big the opportunity really is. To be honest, I think if I went into it at that point in my career, I would have done it for the wrong reasons. I would have done it because I would have saw a monetary opportunity.
I think maturity plays a massive role.
Most definitely. And where you're not educated on it, I would have seen it like, in a perspective of completely a business person, which is, I could make more money doing it this way, with the same properties, and then kind of doing it that way. So I'm glad I my reasoning for doing it is different to then, but the way I see these things is these things just play out for a reason. Your journey is your journey. I learned an awful lot being in business at that age, and yeah, I think it set me up for the next step of my journey, which was, you know, to go into social housing.
And I know it was brief. Your mortgage broker advisor stage, 5 or 6 months, I think it was. Been doing a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
If you could, I don't know if it's something you'd even be able to comment on, but financing and social housing is a big issue.
Yeah.
Like 99% of our investors are cash buyers. Banks don't necessarily like to remortgage or lend for them in the first place. Is there any advice you'd give for someone that's wanting to finance something like this that's not necessarily a cash buyer?
Yeah, so it would be, there are specialists in the field, right? So there are specialist mortgage advisors who specialise in social housing, supported accommodation, who know what to preempt, because mortgages is pretty much a tick box exercise. Does, you know, if you fit that criteria, then it's okay. And if you're just doing what you would call a vanilla mortgage, which is just, you know, first time buyers buying a residential house, 10% deposit, both working, you know, good credit, etc., it's very straightforward to do. But when you go into, you know, social housing, the lease term gets longer, the break clauses are an issue for some lenders. There are lenders out there, but it's about speaking to someone who actually knows, and you pay people for their experience. So you have to be prepared to use an advisor who has spent years knowing what they know to help you raise finance.
I think it's a tricky one because I've worked with, obviously, a number of people that are trying to do this via a mortgage or necessarily buy it and then pull some money back out.
Yep.
So certain lenders won't do it if you haven't got a break clause in. You know, anything more than 2 or 3 years are not happy.
Yep.
So they need a break clause down the middle.
Yep.
But I've also come across people that have said, oh, well, you've got a break clause in at year 3. So they've downvalued my house because they've put it's a 3-year lease, not a 5-year lease, and that has affected the rental value and blah, blah, blah. So some of them are wanting break clauses, some of them don't want break clauses. No one's on the same page, so it's so confusing for people that want to get into it.
Yeah, I think I think at the scale we're at the moment, it's good that we have that we have this department where landlords can pick up the phone and say, this is a situation, because the team can just speak to their mortgage advisor, find out, you know, what the issues are, and come up with a new agreement if that is the case.
An addendum to the lease.
And that's a major part of, you know, the landlord partnership thing. We want to make things work.
Accommodate for them.
Yeah, and we can make commercial decisions because we want these partnerships, we want these relationships to work for everybody involved.
Good. So, again, like I say, I know you're pressed for time, so I just want to ask you, is there anything that you want to put out there, you know, for any viewers that are watching, any potential landlords that are just a little bit unsure about maybe working with the housing network or working with Citywide, just social housing in general? Is there anything you want to put out there, maybe debunk a couple of myths?
Yeah, so I would say, firstly, do research into social housing and what kind of social housing you want to go into. Because like I say, there's so many different avenues into social housing. And when you have found social housing provider that you want to work with, so there are loads and loads of social housing providers out there, make sure you do your research and due diligence on those providers. Some providers do an amazing job and are really good at what they do, and
others do an amazing job at hiding what they do.
Yeah, others do exactly that, and there are so many that open up, start it, for some reason doesn't work out, close down, and it leaves the landlord in really, you know, tricky situations. So it would be like any kind of business decision that you make. Make sure you do your due diligence to the providers that you are working with. And it's easy to just do some basic things like look on company's house, look at their accounts, ask them for a copy of their credit report. You know, very simple things that could stop you from getting stuck in the mud later on.
So these COVID care providers, anyone that's popped up in the past 2 years, essentially is a tricky, you know, they haven't necessarily got that history there to
Yeah,
to back up the promises they're making.
It is, and it is a catch-22 because there are some that are starting out and they need the break,
And
right?
you've got to get a legitimate provider somehow.
And they need to find properties and you know, but all in all I say is do your due diligence, see what who they operate with. Are their contracts directly with local authorities? Are they referrals based on, you know, all other types of things? And secondly, if you're a landlord and you put your property out there into the ether of the property deal sources, the rent-to-rent sources, it doesn't look good. I get offered the same property
10 times.
Yeah, by different people.
Farmyard, back to the farmyard again.
Yeah.
It's like there's a spreadsheet out there.
Yeah, and everyone's got access
Everyone's
to it.
got
access
it,
to
and
it.
they all just send it to anyone they can do.
Yeah.
And if they get anything from it, they'll go back and try find the landlord.
I remember we were selling a property last year, and this is one that I knew the landlord is a very close friend of mine, someone who practically grew up with. The sourcing agent sent me a spreadsheet, and the same property was on there. I'd sold that property a week ago. It only took me a couple of days to sell. And I asked him where to get the property from. Oh, it's my friend's property. And it's like, there's no shit. They don't find no shame in telling you it's not mine. I'm going through somebody else. It comes down to transparency, and again with providers, you have to ask transparent providers. Like Louis said, some are there to hide things. And some are there just to be. It's a problem, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah, when I get the same property offered to me by multiple different people, I would just say, look, it's obviously so many hands.
It's being shopped around.
You know, it's not something that I want. So if you're a landlord, and you are getting, you know, people that are doing rent to rent sourcing, etc., approach you. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, just, you know, make sure there's clear boundaries in place.
Yeah, make sure
that property doesn't get put into the ether of rent to rent sources, because it just gets banded about so much.
It's
and
messy.
A lot of providers would just say,
I'm not interested.
Yeah, not interested. I've been offered this too many times.
I always, you know, and the landlords know what they're doing now. They'll always tell you, no, I've not submitted it elsewhere.
Yeah.
I always check beforehand, have you sent this to anyone else? I don't want to send it to the same provider and piss them off and make them think that I'm, you know, offering stuff that I don't have control of, and B, you're shopping around for the best figure just for the monetary aspect of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to, you know, make sure you've got control of what you're offering to people like yourself.
Yeah, so it's two sides of the coin. Landlords making sure they're working with the right provider, and landlords making sure that they're working with, you know, the right person who is going to take their property and not put it out there for the whole universe to see and band it about.
Lovely. So, moral of the story, guys, is do your DD. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for watching. No doubt we'll have Murray back at some point, because it sounds like he's got plenty more stories to tell us.
Definitely.
Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're watching your podcast. Thank you.